I can't believe it's happened again. We take a week out, the sim racing world spots our absence and decides to unleash the Simpocalypse. Well, don't you worry, we've got all your sim news right here, right now. Greetings Rummies and welcome to Rum, the channel sharing the joy of sim racing, and to a regular news roundup, our weekly sim racing news. Welcome to the channel if you're new here, and thanks to all those who come here often, especially those who subscribe. My name is Serta and I will be your host for this video. Kuno's released a small patch dubbed 1.9.5 with some small fixes, balance of performance adjustments at Kyalami, Donington, Spa and Nürburgring, as well as new liveries from the ongoing BMW Sim Attack event and a track limits detection issue at Laguna Seca. Does this mean no more cutting the last hairpin? Gotta find out. Included in the patch also was a potential bug involving the brake ducts during pit stops. Again, no further information given, but there are some things you don't mess around with, and a sim racer's brakes are one of them. Also, F1 Manager 23 is out. Enjoy it until October when Frontier stops updating it, or skip it altogether and wait a couple of years until all the big bugs have been finally resolved. And while we're at it, let us compare last year's almost 24,000 players in the first 24 hours of F1 Manager 2022 to the slightly over 6,000 players in the first 24 hours of F1 Manager 2023. It seems y'all do wise up, but we didn't expect anything less from the wise sim racing community. And
it's that time of the month again, namely August edition of Romcoms, the monthly podcast that discusses sim racing, real racing, and sometimes just a little cathartic ranting from the three people that bring you the joy of sim racing at least once a week, apart from last week when Cert was off having fun or something. Thursday the 10th of August, Romcoms will release on all your favourite podcasting platforms, this time recorded in front of a live studio audience of our bronze level patrons and channel members.
Studio 397 have been at it again with their bumper-sized laundry list of fixes to the rFactor 2 simulation, with the TLDR being AI braking, steering, overtaking, basically every second of an AI driving on track or even in the pits, with a fun bug where if there was a car in an AI's pit stall in quali, the AI wouldn't pit and so would run out of fuel on the track. Outside of the AI overhaul, it seems there has been a change to how the sim communicates understeer and oversteer, fixed cars rolling over, so no more grip rolling touring cars maybe. And lastly, they changed the management of session skips, so when you skip to the end of a single player session, the session will be fully simulated now, so the AI don't get mysteriously faster than they were while you were driving on the track. Some channel or other again said our hobby is dying out, which made us react accordingly. But let's say what the numbers for July say, shall we? With 24,334 daily average users, it's clear it's going downhill, as it's only the second best number we've ever recorded and cannot reach the over 25,000 daily users of December of last year. What a pity. Horrible numbers also for Assetto Corsa, which falls down by 12 users daily less than last month. The horror. Also, things like Automobilista 2 reaching the most daily average users ever show the interest in sim racing with this sim is... Okay, I'll stop the sarcasm. We're sure the 1.5 had its part in sending the Automobilista 2 user numbers through the roof, and the repeated free-for-all times of Raceroom The second because of an issue with the shop servers have helped that sim also to slightly better numbers than last month. Or maybe everyone started driving Porsches, what do I know. In fact, only rFactor 2 falls hard, losing 50 daily users, while Assetto Corsa and Assetto Corsa Competizione lose a tiny bit, all other sims getting big numbers even if not breaking records. In the hottest July on record, but surely the coolest July of our future.
Oh, what a beautiful morning. Oh, what a beautiful day. It seems like only a couple of weeks ago we were bringing you the news of SCS bringing Texas to American Truck Simulator. But the Czech developers have brought us yet another state to the sim. Oklahoma is the newest DLC and brings with it another incredible list for all our avid US trucking fans to discover. 10 brand new cities including Tulsa and Oklahoma City, and scenic towns to add atmosphere as you make your way across the southern state. The usual array of delivery destinations and deliverable goods with quintessential landmarks like the Skydance Bridge, University of Tulsa and Route 66 Museum, as well as Gloss Mountain and Beavers Bend State Parks, all have been lovingly recreated. Even the truck stops don't get brushed over, with 30 unique truck stops coming with this DLC, as well as Oklahoma-specific Steam achievements, as we've come to expect from SCS. Along with the DLC release, there is a new #Cruising Oklahoma World of Trucks event. There are undisclosed rewards by completing deliveries to or from all 10 cities in Oklahoma, and if the ATS community can collectively drive 111 million miles, or 178.6 million kilometers, delivering to or from any city in Oklahoma, special community rewards will also be doled out. Finally, if you take any external contract or external market job to or from Oklahoma City, you'll earn an adorable honeybee plush cabin accessory. The Oklahoma DLC is already available on Steam for €12 USD. Not content to simply serve a brand new map, SCS have also released the Kenworth W900 Tuning Pack, a bumper crop of 500 customizable options for your Kenworth, from bumpers to show arches, liveries to interiors. You can make the W900 your own now. So grab this pack if you love your Kenworth and get decorating. €4 USD on Steam right now. In the 2 weeks since we brought you the last sim racing news of the week, KW Studios have released 2 updates to R3E. Nothing major, but something you need to be aware of if you're regularly driving in the sim. The broader changes: there was a standardization of the traction control presets, with 1 being for beginners and 5 being dubbed esports level. Yes, that's what the patch notes say. The missing ABS activation noises for the Porsche 911 GT3 Cup 992, the Endurance version, the Bentley Continental GT3 and the Audi R8 LMS Ultra have also now been added. The Mazda MX-5, or Miata, has had the 184 that it produces now correctly attributed to the flywheel, not the wheels as it was previously, and the drag increased. If you think that means your previous lap records will now be unattainable, you'd be correct, as in the next round of server maintenance, those records will be wiped and possible to be reset. The Porsche Cup cars have had their AI edited, so they should now leave just a touch more room for you to race side by side, and the 992 Cup car has had the brake cooling adjusted to more accurately reflect reality. The Lotus Evora GT4 has had its default setup improved, with more responsive front end which should offer more confident turn-in and more controllable rear by default. Obviously all changes you can revert or modify if you wish. Finally, the Ferrari 488 has had its aerodynamic drag reduced, hopefully making for higher Vmaxes at Monza, and the Audi R8 GT3 Evo has had some aero tweaks to help with on-power turning and has the dampers tweaked. Yep, that's exactly what they say. Look, I don't know what to tell you. For a company that produces real-life competitive dampers, they should know better than to use the term tweaked when describing damping rates.
Even iRacing joined the Simpocalypse this week because why not pile it on? While I was slurping my favorite beverage, they went and published their July 2023 development update trying to out-Reiza. Close, but no cigar. It seems the iRacing team went on a workation in Europe, as most tracks they are working on and have in different stage of development are in that continent. The only one not hailing from Europe being Pukekohe. Also, and faithful to the vast oval racing opportunities iRacing offers, the short ovals of Slinger Speedway and Winchester Speedway are being worked upon, and Kern will most assuredly come out in September, as will Zandvoort, as this is not the first version of Zandvoort but an update to 2023. iRacing will now offer both versions in one package, as they will with Kent, which will come out in a dirt and a tarmac version. They once again talk about rain in iRacing, addressing the changes they are doing for wet tracks, as well as the physics of tires, tracks and water working together. Unluckily, while they continue talking about tire physics, they do so in such broad terms that it sounds more like a manager blathering about things he or she doesn't know anything about, rather than any useful information. The only way we can compress that is by saying that they seemingly have invested some time in some kind of tire physics, as they have in reworking the codebase, as they have in the physics of the tarmac in ovals. Another interesting thing is that they seem to be working on a career mode, which seems very strange coming from iRacing, truth to be told, but hey, more power to them if they pull it off.
Nacon, the publisher of not only the hotly anticipated Test Drive Unlimited Solar Crown, but also the WRC family of games including Generations, together with their developer Neopica, who made the FIA European Truck Racing game, are bringing a unique category of driving to light. Overpass 2, announced back in May 2023, will refine the often overlooked rally raid category of racing and bring the spotlight of the UTV, ATV and rock bouncer classes of off-road racing. It's not really racing though, is it? More survival. Did the announcement pass you by? It sure did us. For shame. But good news if you're a rabid off-roading legend. Overpass 2, originally scheduled for October 19th for release, has been moved up to September 28th, so not long at all to wait. There will be 4 environments, a full career mode and 8-player multiplayer. That sounds small, but when you consider Rallycross grid numbers, that's not bad at all. The game will feature 30 off-road manufacturer brands, as well as fully licensed equipment and sponsors from real-life rally raiding, as well as being available on the new generation consoles and PC, so no one misses out on the opportunity to throw themselves at a scary mountain in a space frame buggy with 2 soft suspension and far too much power.
Do you race Automobilista 2 with your friends? Do you want to be challenged? Do you want to experience the most diverse array of events you can experience with Automobilista 2? Then we have a very special treat for you. The Automobilista 2 Community Cup is preparing its 2nd season, and you and your community, clan or just your close group of friends can be a part of it. The ultimate goal of the Community Cup is to have 24 drivers hailing from at least 8 communities taking to the grid. Similar to last year's season, each community will choose a car and track combination, resulting in an eclectic combination of events that all communities will drive on. You may very well choose your strongest mix, but so will the other communities. Of course, the races will be broadcast live here on your favorite sim racing YouTube channel. And RumRum is laying down the gauntlet in the form of a €100 prize pool to be split among the top 3 teams at the end of the season, winning themselves Steam vouchers worth 50, 30 and €20 respectively. If you are interested, get yourself to the Automobilista 2 Community Cup Discord, of course linked below, and dive into the conversation with the other communities. This is going to be massive fun. If you would like to help us bring you better product reviews and sim racing news in the future, you can do so by becoming a patron at patreon.com. RomRom. Amongst other perks, becoming a patron will fix your name for posterity like this, but you'll also be able to participate in our podcast recording, get to know what we plan and what we're doing, and will be able to take part in our decisions. So a big thank you to our patrons and members. If you come here often, please consider subscribing. Of course, almost on the same day I went into my vacation, Reiza thought it to be the perfect moment to release the much-awaited 1.5 version of Automobilista 2. As they also published other information, we've subdivided this Automobilista 2 segment into two smaller segments because there's a lot to say. Let's start with the update and the two hotfixes that came after that, leaving Automobilista 2 at the 1.5.0.2 version number. Of course, the biggest thing in the update is the physics overhaul, which we've talked a lot about in the past and which we'll detail later in its segment. It's extremely interesting and extremely juicy, but very geeky. We at RomRom confess to be part-time geeks, and we know many of you are, but let's move on with the update. The physics overhaul has now been implemented for almost all cars. The only ones which don't have it are the karts. Be aware that we're talking about Reiza, who will for sure tweak the models here and there until they are completely happy with them. Expect small to medium-sized fixes for different cars in the near future. And there will be also changes to the AI here and there. Unluckily, and we're becoming somewhat accustomed to it, the physics overhaul means all setups have to be deleted once again, as your old setups are no good anymore. Truth to be told, I've stopped doing anything in the setups other than fuel loads and will wait a while before I do. And the time trial boards will be wiped clean once again. Say bye-bye to your record-making, records. The other big thing is the drop of the Adrenaline DLC Part 1, which brings Rallycross and dirt racing. Yes, Part 1 as Part 2 is already in the making. As for the content of the Adrenaline Pack 1, check the video up there where we already detailed it. And yes, there's now a P1 Gen 2 class in Automobilista 2 with the Metalmoto AGR Gen 2, the Sigma P1 and the Ginetta G58, as well as the Corolla 23 stock car for the stock car class. Multiplayer got some love with work on the netcode as well as a Session Auto Advanced functionality for multiplayer sessions. Also, the mod support has seen some changes and advances. More about it in a soon-to-come update of our video on how to add mods, which will be more of a complete revamp of the video, so subscribe and click on the bell to get information about it as soon as it comes out. Talking about mods, be careful if your championship save has an unknown modded car, as this crashed the sim on game start until it was fixed in the 1.5.0.2 version. Damage activation has been made less sensitive and you can activate a spotter in Automobilista 2 now, which we recommend over the one in Crew Chief, as this here should be more precise. One very special thing which will enhance the realism is that a wet race line may very well be less grippy than normal wet tarmac, as the rubber on the tarmac makes it so. Also, curbs are now more slippery when they are wet, like in real life. Learn which curbs to avoid in the rain, or else. Less realism but better user experience, especially if you're not using VR, is what making the Halo transparent will bring you a new enhancement in this version. Full course yellows now have a visible safety car, pace car for all of you over the pond, and human opponents are collidable during set phases, so be even more careful. The AI's pit strategy has been improved during those phases too. In the HUD, you can now specifically search for off-road tracks, and there is a Rallycross race weekend preset for all of you dirt drivers. Together with all the physics changes we're talking about later, flat spotting is now less prone to happen, dirty air behaves now a little bit different, more realistic, depending on class, and of course, under tray spring, damper and friction have been thoroughly revised. On the AI front, AI has been calibrated once again, much needed after so many changes to the physics. Also, their performance will be worse the more their tires are worn up, as it should be. Their performance also drops when driving slicks on a wet track or intermediates and wets on a drying track. Sound has also seen a lot of fixes and tweaks, adding gravel runoff sound, panning, puddle and dirt sound to left and right sound channels depending on the position of the sound source, and adjusting the interior engine sound of the Chevrolet Corvette C8 Z06. There's also been some tweaks to tracks, of which the funnier is returned Wandering Marshall to his post at Paul Frère in Spa-Francorchamps 2022. No, we can't have Wandering Marshalls, can we? And talking about tracks, all tracks except for kart and dirt tracks now have place for at least 26 cars. Cars also saw changes other than the physics we'll talk about real soon. Trademark the suspension animation for a lot of Formula cars, the Lotus 71 and all Caterhams being the most broad, as well as adding pit limiter display to all GTE and GT3 models that have that one in real life. Before we go knee-deep into physics details, let us remind you that you can read all of the details we have left out following the links in the description. Believe us, we have left out many small nitty-gritty details. This segment is long enough without those, and we're talking about Reiza after all, kings of nerding out on details, and we love them for that. Now to the big physics changes that the 1.5 brings. It all started with a bug fix within the game engine used by the Reiza team, and a big overhaul with the physics foundations it uses. And yes, plural. Trust me, you don't want to know the details, and if you want, get yourself to our Discord and we'll explain. It's convoluted. Simplifying, solving the bug made anything having to do with the suspension much more realistic, and in consequence, anything having to do with the car's body. This also brought a deep analysis by the developers of all the physics within Automobilista 2. They were checked at least twice, sometimes even 3 times, and often enough, the code was retuned more or less heavily. In turn, this meant working on the force feedback, making it work differently for different cars. Where possible, Reiza worked with specs provided by the car companies, or even the CAD data used by the companies to build the car, either directly from the companies or through research. Other parts were done using publicly available information. Then they worked on the so-called collision box, so to speak, the programming of where the car begins and where it ends, so that Automobilista 2 knows where an encounter of the car with another car or the wall happens. Or, and this is the important point, of the car's floor and the tires with the track. This is important because it defines, amongst other things, where parts of the car that are not the tires create the aero profile and scrub the track, and that triggers further calculations about what it means for the body of the track and how it reacts to different ride heights and encounters with the track. Once these data points were all set up, it was time for the devs to see that the tires do their part too. Where do they flex? How do they work with the suspension? How do they react to the body and the track? We won't get into the heavy details of friction, lift and drag coefficients or tire treading, just letting you know that Automobilista 2 does all these calculations too, while you are trying to survive the next corner and beyond. And then we go on a loop of car body influencing tires, influencing suspension, influencing aerodynamics, influencing car body, and so on, which is what real-life physics do. I'm surprised we don't need supercomputers to run Automobilista 2. And when you have that working in harmony, you still have the driveline to think about. Engine, clutch, gearbox, differential, drive shafts, and even wheel bearings, delivering the Newton meter to the tire, which through grip moves the car ahead. Yeah, the tire once again, the most important part of racing. We won't go further down the physics rabbit hole, contrary to what Reiza devs have done, but this is geek paradise for sure. Let's leave the cars aside, as there would be no sim racing without tracks or at least some surface to move the cars around, right? Reiza have been working on tracks all time, but now they had to go deep, similar to what iRacing has done in the past months, as the Reiza devs were now confronted with what they call deformable terrains, and we call dirt. Now, not only does your car and its tires move around, the surface of the track does too, which moves us into physics of semi-fluids. Well, not us, because I'd be more lost than Mazepin on an F1 track trying to explain those. Rather, the Reiza devs. To make a very long story short, you have dirt, yet tarmac, Robert tarmac, and the variations of those in the wet. We've talked about the racing line in the wet as well as the curbs in the wet already in the update part of this video. Now imagine dirt and dirtier tarmac in the wet. All these, the relationship with each other, and the tires were worked upon or worked over for the 1.5. Yeah. About that supercomputer, one last thing, we love the shout out to the different developers by Renato at the end of his physics post. Not only because we know some of them and have led a lot of conversations with them, but because you can feel his love for the bunch he's working with.